Mr. Clay was a man of great determination and grit. In the mid-1700s, he and his family moved onto a piece of land in what is now known as Mercer County, West Virginia. It was a difficult time, and the family faced many struggles in their new home. Clay and his wife worked tirelessly to build their farm from the ground up. They cleared the land, dug wells, and built a small cabin to shelter their family. It was tough work, but they persevered, driven by their desire to create a better life for themselves and their children. Their 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter, were young at the time and were expected to contribute to the farm's labor. The boys would help their father with the manual labor, while their daughter would assist her mother with the household chores. Despite their young ages, the children worked hard and were integral to the farm's success. As time went on, the family's farm prospered. They raised crops and animals, and their farm became a thriving homestead. Unfortunately, the Clay family's struggles did not end with the challenges of building their farm. They also faced a difficult relationship with a Native American tribe who had inhabited the area for generations before the Clays arrived. At first, the relationship between the Clays and the natives was peaceful. Clay made a point of respecting the tribe's territory and customs, and the tribe reciprocated by leaving the Clays alone. However, tensions soon arose between the two groups. The Clays began to expand their farm and encroach on the natives' land. This was met with anger and resentment from the tribe, who saw it as a threat to their way of life. The situation worsened when Clay's sons were hunting on native land and killed a deer that belonged to the tribe. This sparked a feud between the Clays and the natives. One day, as Clay was out hunting, he set his sights on a grazing deer. He focused his breath and caressed the cold steel of the trigger, when suddenly the ripping sound of a distant gunshot tore through the air. Clay gasped as the deer raised its head and pranced off. The shot appeared to have come from the direction of his farm. Clay frantically trekked his way back home. Upon arrival, he desperately called out for his family. Not a sound could be heard. The air was still and silent. All of a sudden, he stumbled upon 2 of his children. He couldn't believe his eyes. In the far distance, his cabin was set ablaze. The natives had surrounded the farm while Clay's children were working the fields. Clay's oldest son was shot by a tribesman. The daughter ran to her brother after hearing the shot. She was brutally attacked and cut down, her body dismembered. The natives then claimed their scalps. The youngest of the siblings was captured and burnt at the stake in front of the home. Enraged and devastated by the horrific acts, Clay retaliated. With the help of other settlers, he tracked down and hunted the natives. He destroyed their entire tribe with no remorse, men, women, and children alike. The remains were tossed into a pit and set ablaze. The day of the tragedy was February 29th. This retaliation sparked a cycle of violence and bloodshed between the settlers and the native tribes in the area, forever deeming the land cursed. Over a century and a half had passed. It was now the 1920s post-industrial revolution. A young entrepreneur had a dream of building an amusement park that would delight people from all over. He was determined to create a place that would offer thrilling rides, fun games, and a chance for families to make lasting memories. He worked tirelessly to find the perfect plot of land for his dream amusement park. When he finally found the right spot, he proudly signed the papers and got to work. Despite the challenges that came with building an amusement park from scratch, he pushed onward. He recruited a team of skilled builders and engineers to help him create the attractions that he envisioned. They worked long hours, often late into the night, to make sure that everything was perfect. Finally, after months of hard work, the park was ready to open. The young entrepreneur stood at the entrance, beaming with pride as the first visitors streamed in. The amusement park was a hit from the start. Families came from all over to ride the Ferris wheel, race go-karts, and try their luck at the games. Children laughed and played in the swimming pool, while couples danced the night away in the dance hall. As time went by, his hard work and dedication helped the park become a beloved destination for local families and tourists. His dream had come to life, and it had brought joy and happiness to countless people along the way. But then, on February 29, its fourth year operating, a strange and horrific incident occurred. The body of a young boy was found floating lifeless in the park's pond. After an investigation, the death was deemed an accidental drowning, despite the water being only 3 feet deep. The park's management placed a full-time lifeguard during park hours. 4 years later, on the same day, a teenage girl was found tangled in the swings, dead. None had seen what happened. It was perceived as a freak accident. The following February 29th, 4 years after, a boy plummeted to his death, falling off the Ferris wheel. The safety latch had mysteriously broken off, even after passing recent inspections. 4 years after that, a couple fell off the dance hall stage and collided their heads with the jagged edge of the stairs. Both dancers perished that night. Despite increased safety efforts, the deaths continued to happen every 4 years on February 29th. The park implemented strict security measures and staff to watch over the visitors, and increased safety measures on all the attractions. But still, the deaths continued. As the years went on, staff and visitors alike witnessed unexplained and mysterious occurrences. The swings would move by themselves, objects would move on their own, and guests would feel sick at certain areas of the park. Some even claimed to have seen ghostly figures wandering around the park at night. After 60 years of service and countless tragedies, the park finally closed its doors for good. Years went by, and the park became more and more forgotten, overtaken by vines and decay. The abandoned amusement park had adopted a reputation for being cursed and continued to experience strange phenomena. People would sneak onto the property to explore and document their paranormal experiences. But on one February 29th, a group of thrill-seekers ventured into the abandoned park, hoping to catch a glimpse of the supernatural. Reports say that at first, everything seemed normal. They explored the empty cabins and walked through the overgrown racetrack. But as the sun began to set, strange things started to happen. The swing ride began to sway on its own, creaking and groaning. The canoes in the pond started moving, despite there being no visible wind or current. They reported hearing the sound of footsteps coming closer and closer and closer. As panic set in, the group ran, trying to find the exit. But they all seemed to have gotten turned around. They couldn't identify any landmarks, as if totally lost. After what seemed to be an eternity, the group finally made it out the gate. One of their members was missing. Search and rescue teams were unable to locate the individual the following day. Search efforts continued for weeks, but came up with no leads. The list of missing persons cases kept growing every leap year on the dreaded date. After a few decades, the park was sold to another investor with hopes of building a residential neighborhood in the mid-80s. However, on February 29th, 1988, during construction, a chilling discovery had occurred. The pilot of an excavator noticed what looked like bones and old artifacts. The operator approached the site and picked up what appeared to be a human skull. Suddenly, he grasped his chest, gritting his teeth and gasping for air until he collapsed. The excavator pilot had experienced a heart attack and passed away surrounded by skeletal remains. When emergency responders arrived, they found that the site was an ancient Indian burial ground. As it turns out, the operator had unwittingly stumbled across the remnants of the Clay Massacre from over 200 years before. The very site where some say was the source of the supposed curse. All construction was halted and the site was once again closed. Until this day, the park remains closed, although it is a tourist attraction for paranormal activity. Visitors to the park have reported seeing strange apparitions, hearing unexplained noises, and feeling a sense of foreboding. Some even claim to have seen the ghostly figures of children playing in the old playground. The park is now shrouded in mystery and legends about its cursed past, and few dare to venture into its abandoned grounds. It's been 3 years, 11 months, and 28 days since the last death on the site. The next leap year has once again arrived. Would you dare to visit this February 29th?